Welcome, everyone. As Director Rothman mentioned, my name is Anita Levels. I'm one of the 4 Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I'm in the Pittsburgh area. We always like to know who is joining us today. If you'll could please put in your name and what organization you're affiliated with and your location. I'm with the Pittsburgh Regional Office here with the Human Relations Commission. So please go ahead and put that in the chat. We are going to go in with the important information that we have here today. But before we go there, I'd like to welcome my supervisor, my director, Director Meck, who is the director of our Civil Rights Outreach Division, to continue with our welcome today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being in the space with us. My name is Cheryl Meck. I'm the director of the Civil Rights Division here at PHRC. And it's an honor to be in the space with y'all. I would like to bring some greetings and opening remarks on behalf of Edie Lassiter, who unfortunately was not able to join us, but is very much looking forward to this interaction with Dr. Milwicki. I did want to provide some context as to what led us here to this important discussion today. As a result, the Civil Rights Division has been a part of PHRC since January of 2024. So we're coming on 2 years of existence. And we are the 3rd state in the nation to have a Civil Rights Division at the state government level. And so we're that team that is the immediate response team to any time there's a catalyst event, civil unrest, rallies, outreach. We provide education and training. And I give that background to say why we're here. As you know, many of us know that there were recent KKK recruitment flyers, particularly in the Mechanicsburg area. We had some out in Indiana County. You know, although this is not new overall, it does not negate the impact that it has on the people in the community. And so the Civil Rights Division led in just working with grassroots organizations, coming together for a No Hate in Our State town hall. We featured Dr. Milwicki, who you will learn more about his work with Southern Poverty Law Center, to give the data on the KKK and other white supremacy groups. And while you'll learn maybe some things that you didn't know before as far as what groups are maybe dying out and other groups that are coming along, at the end of the day, Pennsylvania is no space for hate. And the community in Mechanicsburg, I give them kudos because they made that statement loud and proud. And so given the timeliness of this conversation, our continued collaboration with Southern Poverty Law Center, we're excited to bring to you today an hour of additional education on what the type of work that Dr. Milwicki does, and hopefully open it up for engaging conversation, comments, and questions afterwards. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Anita.
Thank you, Director Meg. So welcome, everyone, to the Ku Klux Klan, the history, context, and community strength. We have Dr. Alon Milwicki. He studies white supremacy, neo-Nazism, and systemic racism in American history. His particular focus is on the origins and proliferation of the Christian identity movement and religious justifications for discrimination and domestic violent extremism. Dr. Milwicki has served as a consultant and intelligence analyst for the U.S. Air Force and was trained in open source and human intelligence gathering and analysis. Currently, Dr. Milwicki serves as the Senior Research Analyst for the Intelligence Project at the Southern Poverty Law Center. Can we please give Dr. Alon Milwicki a great PHRC welcome? This is some heavy information that he's going to be giving to us, but we are in great hands with Dr. Milwicki. Welcome, Dr. Milwicki. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be here. As I was saying earlier, one of the things that really makes me feel empowered to be here is the reaction your community has already put in place. This is the appropriate reaction to whenever a hate group, one as infinitesimal as the Klan is, as we'll talk about that, or something as more widespread as sort of the White Lives Movement or White Lives Matter movement, excuse me, or neo-Nazism. So my plan today is I'm going to, let me get my screen shared. I'm here, as you guys mentioned, because you guys have had some unfortunate unwanted visitors. particularly the Silent Knights of the Ku Klux Klan and the Trinity White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan have been distributing propaganda in Pennsylvania. And that's unsettling, and it's meant to be unsettling. And that's kind of the whole point of what they're doing. But once we talk about the Klan and we historicize the Klan, especially the three major waves of the Klan, and then look at the Klan today, my hope is that it'll contextualize the Ku Klux Klan within the larger white supremacy movement, and we'll understand, again, how and why your community's response was the absolute right way to do it. At Southern Poverty Law Center, we have many analysts who track everything from anti-LGBTQ movements to myself. I am the lead analyst on anti-Semitism and everything in between. Um, so today, what I really want to talk about is the history and the contemporary intelligence work that we do at SPLC. So try to understand what's happening in the country and Pennsylvania more specifically. So again, why we're here. Part of the reason I'm sitting here with you is because recent Klan incidents in your community. You had the Silent Knights pushing the narrative about women's as the guardians of the community. Those were the ones who handed out uh, those little cards that said, women of the KKK. The Silent Knights are the first Klan group in over 100 years to try to reignite the women of the KKK. We'll talk about that a little bit. Uh, Spoiler alert, they're failing. We'll talk about why that's important historically. And you've got the Trinity White Knights who are doing traditional flying campaigns trying to recruit and build fear. And we'll talk about why that's not as an effective, why that's actually more of a sign of weakness than it is a sign of strength. But again, from a perspective of documentation and investigation, your community has handled this 100% correctly. What's here with these incidents, what these actually represents, is the Trinity White Knights and the Silent Knights are resorting to flying. Again, not a sign of strength. That's not an evidence of a powerful, organized movement. It's the actual sign of the opposite. The fact that these groups are reduced to cheap photocopies left on doorsteps or in baggies with dog food tells you something crucial about their capacity and their actual standing. They're not powerful. They're not growing. They're trying to appear relevant through the lowest risk, cheapest available tactic. And honestly, that should give you some hope or seem somewhat optimistic, even though it is something that I'm not denying the horror you may feel in seeing this show up in your community. But this is not the Klan of the 1920s. This is certainly not the Klan of the 1960s. They are significantly smaller and significantly weaker. Again, that doesn't mean we dismiss or ignore it. A smaller, weaker group can still cause harm. Marginal groups can still commit violence. But it does not mean we respond to this without clear eyes. We take it seriously, and we refuse to grant them the power they're seeking. The key message here is awareness, not fear. Education, not panic. So for understanding the Klan, it's important to look at three historical waves. I am a historian by trade. That is what my degree is in. And if we're really going to understand what's happening now, we need to understand where the Klan has come from. And here's the thing. There isn't one consistent, continuous Ku Klux Klan in history. That is a misnomer. That is categorically false. They are actually generally represented by these three distinct phenomena spread across American history. And they're so different. Even each individual wave is so different from each other that while clans or the Klan still exist today, sorry, I skipped one slide, my bad. It shouldn't be misconstrued of the Klan of these eras. In fact, the Klan in these eras are so different from one another, it's still even hard to consider the Ku Klux Klan of the entire late 19th, early 20th century as one cohesive movement. The first Klan emerges right after the Civil War in response to Reconstruction. It was a terrorist organization. It was decentralized. It was violent. It operated with a specific goal: reverse the changes of emancipation and restore white control. It operated through violence, and it was defeated through federal intervention in the 1870s. Gone for the time. No Klan afterwards for about 40 years. The second Klan sort of shows up in 1915, and we'll talk about it. And this is the Klan in the 1920s that grows to upwards of 6 million people nationwide. And then another 50 years passed, and the third Klan emerges in the 50s and 60s during the Civil Rights era, and it's different again. In this case, it's not one unified organization. They have the same violent tactics and night-riding tactics of the first Klan, but the first Klan, the Reconstruction Klan, was the Ku Klux Klan. There are many different factions of the Ku Klux Klan in the third wave. So here's what I want you to sort of take away from this. Yes, the Klan has been in America for over 150 years. But it usually only has about a window of a decade each time in these waves to actually make an impact. But every single time it fails, it crashes hard. Understanding that pattern is crucial for what we're facing now, because the Klan today is nothing like the Klan of these three eras we're going to talk about. It is in constant decline. It is reduced to scattered small chapters with aging membership, minimal recruiting capacity, dark corners of the internet where most people don't even know exists. But hate and ideology don't disappear. And it's because of that that these other versions of the Klan keep trying to reignite the Ku Klux Klan and recapture the sort of, if you could call it, glory of one of these three eras. So the first Klan. Let's start with the origins. Former Confederate generals led by the Imperial Wizard Nathan Bedford Forrest founded what he called the Ku Klux Klan. The story they later told was that it started as a social club, but it transformed into something different very quickly. It became a paramilitary terrorist organization with one crystal clear mission: overthrow Reconstruction, eliminate the political power of Black voters and Black elective officials, restore white control, reinstitute racial hierarchy, and when the law didn't help them, they used terrorism. That wasn't abstract. This wasn't about preserving some mythical Southern culture. There's no lost cause. It is a myth, the lost cause. This was about power, political power, social power, economic power, and racial hierarchy above all of them. From their perspective, emancipation and Reconstruction just completely upended the South. Formerly enslaved people were now voting, running for office, serving in legislatures, owning land, building churches, schools, businesses, creating their own institutions. And a lot of white Southerners, especially people who fought for the Confederacy, saw this as intolerable and an inversion of the natural order. The Klan emerged as an attempt to violently restore what they saw as proper Americanism, proper racial hierarchy. And they were brutal. They dressed in white robes and hoods, and they claimed to represent dead Confederate soldiers, would conduct nighttime raids. They'd attack Black families and white folks who supported Reconstruction, particularly anybody who was involved in voter registration, education, or dared to hold office. They'd use whatever violence necessary: whippings, sometimes fatal, beatings, rape as a terror against Black women, shooting, hanging, murder. The violence was deliberate, it was targeted, it was political. They were trying to create a climate of fear, so pervasive that would make Reconstruction impossible, make it so dangerous to participate, to vote, to hold office, that people would just give up and let the Klan try to restore white control. Oh, one ahead, I'm sorry. The first Klan operated more openly, terrorized communities for years, killed many, and terrorized even more. But more importantly, it was defeated, both through organized, determined government action backed by legal authority and enforcement capacity. When it became clear that local authorities in the South weren't willing or weren't able to stop the violence, Congress stepped in. In the early 1870s, they passed 3 enforcement acts. These were also known as the Klan Acts. They made Klan activity a federal crime, not just a state matter. They authorized federal courts to prosecute, which mattered because local courts were often controlled by or sympathetic to those in the Klan. President Grant, a Civil War general who fought on the Union side, organized against the violence that the Klan stood for. He didn't hesitate. He authorized federal prosecutors to bring charges. And he backed all of it with the full weight of federal authority. And hundreds of Klan members got arrested across multiple states. Others were convicted and imprisoned. By the mid-1870s, the Klan, as a so-called organized entity, had ceased to exist. So already, less than 10 years, and they're gone. And it was defeated organizationally. But it sort of, in this context, achieved its larger political goals because it contributed directly through the end of Reconstruction, which came about through the Compromise of 1877, which withdrew federal troops from the South, and it is a direct result for nearly a century of Jim Crow laws, systemic disenfranchisement of black voters, and violent enforcement of racial segregation, including acts of terror like lynching. So that's the first Klan. The second Klan is perhaps the most influential Ku Klux Klan that existed in American history, not simply because they wore the robes and they did similar things in the way that the first Klan did, but because they had socio-political legitimacy. After Reconstruction's end, the Klan basically is gone. 40 years, nothing. In 1915, what ends up happening is William Joseph Simmons, a guy who appointed himself a colonel, whose father was in the first Klan, climbs to Stone Mountain in Georgia with about 15 followers. They built a huge cross and lit it on fire and reignited the second Klan. Now, interestingly enough, the first Klan never burned crosses. This was taken from the movie Birth of a Nation that had come out a few months earlier, a film that portrayed the South as the heroes of the Civil War, displayed African American soldiers as the North as little better than beasts, and President Woodrow Wilson himself, the Southerner and a segregationist, screened it in the White House, reportedly calling it history written lightning. But at this point is when burning crosses becomes a part of the Ku Klux Klan. And here's the really interesting, if not pathetic part. The second Klan begins in 1915, and literally nobody knew or cared. People saw the burning cross and thought it was a publicity stunt for the movie. They weren't impressed or terrified, they were just confused. For the most part, the American public had no idea that the Klan had been reestablished until 5 years later. It doesn't really gain traction until 1921, really 1922, and it really explodes between 1922 and 1925. So what changes? There's two things. The aftermath of World War I and the fear of foreigners, and the Klan actually had, I kid you not, a professional marketing apparatus. World War I unleashed a massive fear of foreigners, and the Klan took advantage of that. Through propaganda, they weaponized the intense feelings of isolationism, the idea of closing the borders, the idea of America folding back into itself. They fed on the post-war nationalism, the post-war fervor. It got to the point where it was channeled throughout domestic movements, and when presidents like Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt actively used slogans like 100% Americanism and true Americanism, and we have Warren G. Harding talking about returning to normalcy, these could all be interpreted as a return to white Protestant social dominance. Post-war anxiety, economic disruption, fear of the Bolsheviks, the Klan positioned itself as the expression of this 100% Americanism. And this is the crucial part. The only other thing that William Joseph Simmons contributed to the Ku Klux Klan, other than starting it in 1915, was the hiring of two professional marketers named Edward Clark and Elizabeth Tyler. These people were professional marketers, and between 1921 and 1923, they developed a scheme that was able to go from a few hundred people in the Klan to, by most accounts, by 1925, there were 4 to 6 million members of the Klan nationwide, and that doesn't include people who were just hangers-on or people who supported the Klan but weren't card-carrying members. It was an explosive growth. A couple of hundred, maybe to a few thousand, to suddenly millions, and we're not talking just in the South. We're talking everywhere. There was not a single state in the entire United States of America that didn't have what was called a clavern, at least one cabin, which is a Klan presence, a Klan headquarters. The world had just changed dramatically. Hundreds of thousands died in World War I. The economy had been transformed. Immigration patterns were shifting. Urbanization was continuing. Women got the right to vote. Labor was organizing. There were real rapid social changes happening in America that caused real anxiety. And the Klan offered an explanation. They were under threat from foreign elements. Catholic, Jews, immigrants, racial minorities were infiltrating and corrupting it. And the Klan was the only group capable of diagnosing and only group capable of treating it. So what did 100% Americanism actually mean? White Protestant native-born supremacy, defining real Americans as true Americans in an explicitly exclusionary term. The idea of being a true American or being 100% American doesn't have to be construed in a racial manner, but when someone from the Ku Klux Klan or any white power movement does so, it means white Protestant native-born male. And here's the thing that catches people most off guard. The first Klan and the third Klan targeted Black people more than anyone, and those who supported them. The enemy of the second Klan was predominantly Catholics. So why Catholics? Hiram Evans, who takes over from William Joseph Simmons as the Klan's imperial wizard and presides over the expansive growth, wrote extensively of what he called Romanism, which was his term for Catholicism, and he argued that Romanism denied everyone the freedoms essential to civilization, and that the fundamental incompatibility between Protestant Americanism and the Catholic Church in America was evident. Basically saying, because the Catholic Church had a pope who was a foreign leader, there was no possibility for anyone who was Catholic to be loyal to America. That everyone who was Catholic in America was suspect and therefore a danger to America. Now, that doesn't mean that they approved of Jews. They also put a similar thing on Jewish people, even though Israel hadn't become a state yet. But they did not they also targeted Black people, immigrants, bootleggers, people who they believed as moral offenders. And the other key figure about it is the people who were in the second Klan weren't who you would expect. We're talking doctors, lawyers, bankers, businessmen, city councilors, teachers, police officers joined. They were ordinary middle class, well-educated Americans who saw themselves as patriots. Politicians, there were many people who the Klan endorsed for anything from mayor to governor, and some of them won their offices, particularly in southern and midwestern states. They organized hate in a way that was so seductive and so dangerous that it was able to flourish throughout mainstream American society and not simply on the fringes. And one of the things I want to talk about is because the Silent Knights gave you that women of the KKK little card, business card, if you would, I want to talk about the women of the KKK. The women of the KKK are an auxiliary group of the second Klan. This is the only Klan that has a women of the KKK. Current clans do sometimes allow women, but there is no, despite what the Silent Knights would tell you, there is no women of the KKK at all that is comparable to this. The women of the KKK were essential to the second Klan's success. Many of them were organizers, fundraisers, had political connections and social standings in the Klan movement. But they also brought something crucial, legitimacy. They transformed the Klan from looking like just men in robes doing some cross burnings, which could be perceived as violent and marginal. They transformed it into a family, a community organizations. The Klan hosted barbecues, they hosted graduations, they hosted birthday parties, they hosted all sorts of events, and they funded events for local communities. And this was a part of the normalization of the Ku Klux Klan. And these women lobbied against boards to fire Catholic teachers, remove textbooks they deemed un-American, right? And I'm sorry, but that kind of sounds familiar to today, right? There is a certain organization that we at SPLC deem to be an extremist group, Moms for Liberty, that is essentially carrying the torch of the women of the Ku Klux Klan. And what's strategically important is they were rooted in family rituals, community events, children's activities, church life. They associated the Klan with family values, community uplift, moral reform. They made bigotry respectable, mainstream, and everyday rather than something on the fringes. They made it seem virtuous, something you were doing to protect your family. If you look at the side of the slide here, look at the creed of the Klanswoman. These are part of them. If you read this with an eye of this not being the Ku Klux Klan, they don't sound that bad, right? They sound like something people could be talking about, or unfortunately are talking about today, right? We believe the American home is the foundation of American life. Don't we still think that today? This is how seductive it was, and why it's so necessary to read between the lines and to always, always, always consider the source. Now we fast forward to today with the Silent Knights doing the same thing. The guardian putting out a message saying they're the guardians of family values. This is not new. This is a part of a deliberate playbook that is centuries old. So let's talk about why they were able to collapse so spectacularly after rising so phenomenally. By 1928, the membership in the Ku Klux Klan dwindled to maybe the thousands, if not the hundreds. So how were they able to rise so spectacularly and collapse so dramatically? This is a common thread throughout clans today. Most clans always have internal contradiction. There's always corruption. There's always scandal. The second Klan perceived, and it still does, the Klan today gives this perception of a unified, discipled national organization, but it has actually no real uniformity, no organizational cohesiveness. Different straight chapters in this period pursued different agendas. They feuded with each other. They fought with each other. They still do today, right? It claimed to be champions of law and order while engaging in violence. It proclaimed to be morally pure while their leaders embezzled funds and engaged in sexual scandals. It perceived itself as patriotic while using intimidation and terror. It saw itself as progressive, pursuing labor rights, public education, but also deeply, deeply conservative as a way of opposing immigration, defending prohibition, and enforcing rigid hierarchies. It was both public and secret. It was both mystical and ordinary. These things can't exist at the same time. It is impossible. So eventually, people started to recognize that. And the other problem was people who the Klan got elected to office saw the Klan numbers dwindling and they abandoned the Ku Klux Klan. So by 1928, you've got maybe a couple hundred hangers-on that still kind of hang on until the 1940s, or really when the Klan comes back again is in the third wave in the 1950s and 60s. And it's not surprising because what's going on here? You have the landmark case of Brown versus Board of Education, and segregation becomes illegal. So the Klan rises in a direct response to the ending of segregation. But again, the third Klan was fundamentally different from the previous two clans in crucial ways. It was not a unified national organization. Even if only in perception, there were multiple competing factions claiming to be the one true Klan. The White Knights, the White Knights of Mississippi, the United Klans of America, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the Christian Knights of the Invisible Empire. I can name a whole bunch more. These factions were not unified. They operated independently and often conflicted with each other. There was no unified structure, period. And in a lot of other ways, it was more like the first Klan, because its peak reached maybe somewhere, if we're being kind, about 50,000 people, which is dramatically less than 6 million, right? And it represented no meaningful political power, no mainstream social acceptance. So like the first Klan, it had gone back to the fringes of society and had gone back to vigilantism. But what makes the third Klan particularly dangerous was its willingness and deliberate strategic commitment to engage in extreme and spectacular violence. This violence was designed to terrorize civil rights activists and Black communities and make them submit. They weren't trying to win elections or build political movements like their predecessor. They were trying to bomb, shoot, and murder their way to maintaining segregation and white supremacy. The third Klan, as I said, was calculated and cruel, and some of the most horrific events happened under their watch. They bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, and the church was a center for civil rights organizing, and they killed 4 young girls and injured 20 others. In 1921, on June 21st, 1964, Klan members murdered 3 civil rights workers, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner. They were working to register Black voters as part of the Freedom Summer campaign, excuse me. They were abducted by the Klan in coordination with law enforcement, driven to a remote location, shot at point-blank range, and buried. And it took weeks to find their bodies, and the county sheriffs were directly involved. And unfortunately, these weren't isolated incidents. These were systemic. These were calculated. They were part of a larger campaign of terror. They targeted homes, churches, businesses with bombs and arson. They murdered ordinary activists, other activists, ordinary people who dared to challenge segregation or vote to demand equality. The violence was meant to send a message. If you participate in civil rights, we will kill you. And then again, in this way, they were like the first Klan. But again, they were decentralized. This also made it difficult for them to actually have any kind of lasting organization, but it also made it made it harder for law enforcement to track them. And this was particularly true when local and state authorities, some particularly across Mississippi and Alabama, tended to be complicit. In many communities, the local sheriff was a Klan member, or at least a Klan affiliate. Local police officers belonged to the Klan. Local prosecutors didn't prosecute Klan's member or gave them a slap on the wrist. But again, the crucial point here, the third Klan's violence backfired strategically. One thing they didn't count on was television, because all of their violence, all of their horror and terrorism was broadcast to the nationwide. And that violence helped generate outrage that built pressure for not only federal intervention, but galvanized hundreds of thousands of people from outside the South to come and help and protest in order to preserve the civil rights legislation and Brown v. Board of Education. And if we flash forward a few decades to the 1980s, the Southern Poverty Law Center developed a strategy that would prove crucial to defeating the third Klan once and for all. Our founder, Morris Dees, and his team began filing lawsuits against Klan organizations, holding them financially liable for violent acts against members. And this was different from criminal prosecution. Civil litigation requires a lot less evidence, I would say, and it can result in massive financial damages. And by the end of the 80s, a $7 million civil judgment against the United Klan Nations on behalf of Beulah McDonald, whose son Michael had been lynched by the UKN in Mobile. The $7 million judgment bankrupted the UKN, and they were forced to sell their national headquarters in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where Klan leaders met. Similar lawsuits followed against other Klan factions, and throughout the 80s and the 90s, the Klan started its decline and diminishing in power, in prestige among white nationalists, and even in terms of marketability or even being an entity worthy, quote unquote, of fear. So let's talk today. The Klan today is a small part of a larger movement. It is a fundamental shift we need to understand. The third Klan was the last major Klan, period. There is no longer any organizational structure that unites any of the disparate Klan movements. All right? The Klan is increasingly marginal within white nationalism. Most white nationalists, believe it or not, think the Klan as a waste of time. Today's white nationalist movement have evolved beyond the Klan. Neo-Nazi groups, alt-right networks, Christian identity churches, accelerationist terror groups, national movements like Patriot Front. They may have borrowed and studied from Klan tactics, but they are not the Ku Klux Klan. They are more prolific, more vocal, and more dangerous than the Ku Klux Klan could ever pretend to be right now. Again, the crucial point to remember is the Klan today represents a tiny fraction of this microcosm. They are a tiny fraction of the fringe. And most of their work now is relegated to online spaces. The Silent Knights and the Trinity Knights operate within this ecosystem. They're not the entirety of their of the threat. They are only one small manifestation of a broader phenomenon. So we mentioned flyering. The image on the left is a flyer from the 1920s. The image on the right shows you our module for how we monitor flying in the United States, and this is available in the SPLC's website. The Trinity White Knights are the largest Klan group in terms of flyering right now, and so far in 2025, they had flyered probably less than 12 times. The Silent Knights, maybe twice. All right. Flyering remains one of the cheapest, low risks, and cowardly methods for hate groups to push their message and instill fear. It's minimal investment, minimal risk, and from the group's perspective, even if they don't recruit anyone, they create a buzz, they've gotten attention, scared some people, and reminded people that they exist. But here's what our research shows at SPLC. Flyering is what groups do when they lack membership funding, organizational capacity, and social legitimacy. It's low cost, low risk, and it's a sign of organizational weakness and desperation, not strength. The fact that the Trinity Knights and other clans were reduced to cheap photocopies and anonymous distribution tells you something crucial about their capacity and standing. They are not powerful enough to organize openly. They're not recruiting fast enough through personal networks. They don't have social legitimacy to operate in daylight. The Silent Knights used women's imagery as family values similar to the women of the Klan. This was a deliberate tactical choice to make their message seem less threatening and more respectable. But it's a tactic that is as old as the Second Klan. It is a 100-year tactic. They have not changed, and they will not change. They're attempting to position themselves as protectors. They are not. Informed, organized communities can effectively counter this through documentation, public education about the tactics, collective community responses that denies these groups the fear they're seeking, and that is exactly what you all are doing here today. Here's another thing, and this is something I rail against in my own work. The media conflation of all white supremacy groups with the Ku Klux Klan. This cannot be further from the truth. Whenever something happens that is white nationalist, white supremacist, white separatist, whatever it might be, the immediate media, and this is across the spectrum, they invoke the Klan. This is counterproductive. Making the Klan the default for white supremacy gives them more power, gives them more legitimacy, when, as I mentioned earlier, they are a fraction of a fraction. The reality of organized hate today is more diffuse, and it is not Klan-centric. Most organized white nationalist activity comes from non-white Klan movements. Sorry, we can leave that up there. The Klan is marginal. Their declining organization seem more powerful than they actually are when we conflate white supremacy with the Ku Klux Klan. This aids their recruitment. This brings more people to their websites. It brings more people to their social media. When we understand the Klan is a small, declining, fragmented part of a larger ecosystem, we can respond more strategically. We avoid giving these groups the unearned attention and free publicity. We focus more on actual threats. Groups like Active Club, like White Lives Matter, like neo-Nazis. And if you look at this is the broader white nationalist, this image I have for you. It's the broader white nationalist movement trends. As of 2024, SPLC documented close to 1,400 hate groups and anti-government extremist groups across the United States. That's 5% less than last year's, or than 2023's, excuse me. Now, while that might sound encouraging, like the threats diminishing, there's an actual catch to it. Because the narratives are becoming more mainstream. There becomes less of a necessity for these groups. So today's white nationalist movement has fundamentally evolved beyond the traditional hierarchical structures of the Klan. Groups like Patriot Front, a nationalist street movement focused on propaganda and public actions. Active Club networks, white nationalist fitness and combat sports clubs recruiting young men. Neo-Nazi organizations, various Christian identity or Christian nationalist churches use sophisticated propaganda and digital communication and in order to recruit young white men specifically. The organizational evolution is absolutely crucial to understand. It's not the Klan. They are not doing things the way the Klan does. The Klan is not the paradigm. At this point, the Klan has actually quite become the exception in terms of methodology. So let's look at 2024 Pennsylvania specifically. We documented about 75-ish anti-government and hate groups. Among these, we have it broken down to about 40 anti-government groups and 36 hate groups. And I want to be absolutely clear. We're not talking about Klan chapters here. I believe there are only 2 Klan chapters within Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, those 2 are pretty small. Active Club Network, as we mentioned, these fitness and combat sports group has a particularly strong presence in Pennsylvania. Patriot Front is there. White Lives Matter is particularly active in PA with flyering, graffiti, and banner drops. And those ones often work with Active Club or Patriot Front. In metropolitan areas like Philadelphia, Harrisburg, there's even a racist skinhead group called the Keystone State Kinheads that maintains a presence, but their activity is even less than the Klan. Skinheads are among the most, if the Klan is a dying breed, the skinheads are on death's doorstep. This is where communities make real difference and where Pennsylvania communities and your community is succeeding. When hate incidents occurs, communities have choices. Panic, ignore it, hope it goes away, over-report on it so you give them what they want. But some, like yours, choose to organize collectively, document incidents, report them, and start conversations like this one. You guys have chosen that option. Effective communication, effective community response looks like what we're doing here. Don't let them create disproportionate fear. Document the incidents, report all of it, create a record. This documentation is evidence. Every documented piece of evidence is potentially useful for law enforcement and legal experts for investigations, civil litigations, and understanding patterns. Hate groups thrive on division and secrecy. Collective vocal public resistance deprives them of fertile ground. History shows that silence and ignorance are their best friends. Solidarity, vigilance, and action, shared action, what you have done is the absolute appropriate response. Informed, measured collection is precisely what undermines these groups. Educate, don't fear. I'm going to close with moving forward and with some kind of confidence here and a little bit of clarity. I am not by any stretch of the imagination saying the Klan isn't still around. And I'm not saying they can't be dangerous. Any hate group can cause harm. But they should not be feared in the way they want to be feared. They are not the mass movement of the 20s. They are not the violent movements of Reconstruction or the Third Klan. They are not even a shadow of what they used to be. Remembering Klan history isn't just about caution. It's about understanding about how hate groups gain and lose power. It's about recognizing that organized, informed communities are the most effective defense. In each case, when the Klan was at its largest, whether it's the first or the second or the third incarnation, organized community, local government responses killed them in under a decade. Your vigilance, rooted in education and solidarity, is working. The fact that your communities are organized and informed and ready to respond is what I would call not only a massive win, but a huge victory. Commit to documenting and commit to documenting discrimination and hate. Investigate complaints. I am the point person at the Ku Klux Klan. I am happy to give you my email. If you have incidents that you have seen about the Ku Klux Klan, I am the point person to contact there, and I can whatever I can do, I will absolutely be glad to do. The work you're doing, the conversation we're having, your solidarity in this community is exactly what not only counters Klan hate, but all hate effectively. So I just want to close by thanking you for your dedication to civil rights and to protecting each other and your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alon Milwicki. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I heard a little Jersey come out every now and then. I know it
Can't
wanted to
help
come
it.
out. You were doing good.
Can't help it. Can't help it.
We appreciate so much your time being here today. So appreciate it. I know we have a lot of questions here. Well, a lot of comments too and questions. And so a lot more comments than questions. So with little to no repercussions, someone mentioned here, as far as their actions, why would these groups change their ways? Do you have any maybe comments, or what would your perspective be on that?
uh,
We did talk
well,
about some
this country,
repercussions.
this country, like has a problem with labeling the Ku Klux Klan as a terrorist group. They are a domestic terrorist group, but part of the issue is currently, as of this year, I have 12 individual Klan groups. So it's hard to label the Ku Klux Klan as a terrorist group when there are many different individual clans who would then probably sue and say, well, we're not because we're our own individual clan. So it makes it difficult to talk about the Klan uh, being something that is an organized and they're just not an organized entity. They're just
I see.
not. And the largest probably Klan organization we have today is maybe if they're lucky, approaching something like 80 to 100 people.
Gotcha. Is that in the Tennessee area? We know that's where,
Oh
with
no,
that being,
that's the Trinity Knights. They'd be between Ohio and Pennsylvania.
ah, okay.
Um, Mostly based
Mhm,
out of Ohio. Those are the ones they do flyer in
mhm,
Tennessee, but the Trinity Knights are probably the most, if you could call them organized, you know.
mhm,
And I'm not trying to diminish what the Ku Klux Klan stands for, or what, and by that I mean what they represent to American people. It's not supposed to be about diminishing the fear of what the Ku Klux Klan has done in the past. It's about diminishing them as an
mhm,
organized group who can do it anymore. I am
mhm,
not going to pretend that if you receive a flyer in a doggy bag on your doorstep, that it's not terrifying, that it's not horrendous, that it's not unnerving, at the say the
mhm,
least. It absolutely is. What I am going to say is that that is their intention. That is what they want.
mhm,
And by giving into that fear, you are giving them what they want.
mhm.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Education, organization is the way we've defeated other clans who were actually capable of committing mass violence. I have to believe it is the same thing when we're dealing with a Klan that is essentially impotent right now.
Gotcha.
And I say that as somebody who has spent quite a bit of deal talking to people who have been affected by the Klan and actually, well, infiltrating one or two.
Gotcha. We'll keep that there. We'll keep
And
that there. Mhm.
if I can, I'd just like to jump in. I saw someone shared in the comments about what had transpired in Mechanicsburg. And
Yes.
they're absolutely right in that it was women of the KKK business cards that were found, from the parade. And for those that maybe hopped on later, I was sharing in the beginning, when you hear Dr. Milwicki, saying that Pennsylvania, the people of Pennsylvania responded right. He's talking about how the people of Mechanicsburg came together from all different backgrounds across all different color lines and religions, and it was wonderful to stand together in solidarity as a beloved community, and just saying it's not welcome here. And I know watching different news, people being interviewed, there was a gentleman that was saying, I didn't even know, that this was still an active thing, to where you've learned today it's been active in various ways with a rise and decline. And that does lead me to one of the questions, Dr. Milwicki, I'd like to ask you from the
Sure.
chat, as far as, and I'm sorry, the comments and questions keep coming, so I lost my space, but it was along the lines of, what about modern day white supremacists? What would be some cowardly tactics that you're seeing that they use, and what would it take for them to decline?
Well, ironically, they use most of the same tactics. A lot of the more brazen groups will do marches. There was a neo-Nazi march, I believe, I want to say in Arkansas in the past couple days. They'll do more brazen things like marches. They'll do banner drops. They will still flyer, but they'll flyer so much more. A group like Patriot Front flyers thousands of times a month, as opposed to, let's say, the Klan that has flyered a grand total of like 15 times since last January. Okay, so it's about capacity, and they will run people for office. They will hold impromptu meetings. There is a violent anti-Semite, anti-Muslim, anti-government first person named Jake Lang who's coming to my town, and all he's going to do there is stand and scream about immigrants and Muslims and Jews, hoping that someone engages him so that he can then fight with them and then gain an extra 20,000 followers on Twitter. So a lot of the real world activity is almost to garnish online support, right? Because the in-person activity is easy to condemn. It's visible, it's easy to see, and it's not as effective as a recruitment tactic as it may have once been, right? You're not seeing as many uh, neo-Nazi marches as you have, say, even in the post-Charlottesville era, right? Oh, yes, it's absolutely happening on our school boards. They are absolutely In fact, one of the things I would say is that there's a lot more similarity in the white nationalist movement now to the Second Klan, or how the Second Klan tried to. I would say the modern white nationalist movement is sort of running with the torch. I guess that's a bad pun, of the Second Klan, and trying to maintain legitimacy. They are trying to affect government change. They are trying to affect both on a local and a state level. They are pushing bigotry. They are pushing uh, um, discrimination, all under the guise of family values, protectionism, um, and uh, and they're doing it through legitimate channels. So and again, that's also part of the reason why we can argue we see the drop in white supremacy groups, because there is more of a normalization of mainstreaming of this that's happening right now.
I'm going to jump in and ask, watching time in the questions, comments, there's several here. Does Southern Poverty Law Center try to track white supremacist money, special interest in state or federal politics? Is this
Oh,
a
yes, we
significant
do.
problem? Can you talk to
Oh,
that?
yes, we do. It's not my department, so there's not much I can say about it, but I know we have a whole particularly involving crypto. There's a lot going on in that space in terms of tracking. and we are absolutely there. Again, not my department, but they are definitely members of my organization who follow the money and who trace it back and are able to um, uh, at least as of now put impediments in the way of them getting what they need or what they think they need. Yeah.
And I think too, it's such a powerful statement that many, in terms of whenever that people come to their own reckoning, you think of the Klan or any type of hate group, that it's so far away, it's not here.
It's
And
not.
the reality is, as you mentioned, they are your teachers, your doctors, your lawyers. It could be anybody, and I
It
think,
is becoming far more normalized. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
it's
no.
becoming far more normalized. I mean, members of my own school board,
Mhm.
2 out of 5 of them are Moms for Liberties sympathetic. Others have worked with Steve Bannon. I have a 3%er living around the corner from me, and they're flying these flags proudly because they have become synonymous, or at least I would argue in the last 10 years, synonymous with patriotism
Mhm.
or protectionism. And these are words that the Second Klan used. Go back and look at some of um, like the Creed of the Klanswoman,
Right.
right? There's a direct line that can be drawn. One of my colleagues is the expert on Moms for Liberty. We can draw a direct line between the women of the KKK to Moms for Liberty. And that's terrifying because
Yes.
that means that maybe the group is gone, but the ideas aren't. And that means that we haven't, as a society, effectively combated them. One of the things that I would teach my students is, and a lot of times when it comes to things like racism, sexism, all kinds of discrimination, we're often a band-aid country. When something flares up, let's say every one of these incarnations of the Klan, we stop it, we put a band-aid on it, right? When you put a band-aid on something, the problem is solved, right? The bleeding stops, everything's good. Especially if you're like in my daughter's age bracket of 8 to 11, right? A band-aid solves everything. But you haven't learned why that cut happened. So when the exact same thing happens on the other arm, you don't treat the symptom, you just put another band-aid on it and you assume it's done. And that doesn't help it. Instead of investigating why these cuts are happening on our arm, we're just putting band-aids on them. That's a very good question.
Mhm.
Um, I would say not the KKK. I would say other white nationalist groups, yes.
And for those that didn't see it, the comment was, are there overlaps with the KKK and what is happening with ICE? That's
That
what
doesn't
Dr.
mean the
Milwicki was saying.
KKK doesn't support what's happening with ICE because they are also an anti-immigrant group. But I would be very shocked that any Klansman would be brave enough to join ICE. Right? The Klan is like particularly cowardly.
Yeah.
They like to hide behind. I mean, they mostly exist on platforms you'll never find. Unless you're one of those weirdos like me who does this for a living.
Looking for it. No, knowledge is power, and that's why I was so excited for today's lunch and learn, to just have a better understanding from historical context to modern day and what the shifts have been and what they look like. Because again, like you mentioned, this does not take away from any generational traumas, any fears that people are feeling, the psychological safety that is different from one person to the next for various reasons. The fact is that we, as the people of Pennsylvania, are learning, one, truth and data, and two, ways to combat, and three, the reality of the cowardness that happens behind those that want to be a part of white supremacy groups or the KKK.
Yeah.
So any
And
last comments for the end of our today's lunch and
well,
learn? This has been phenomenal.
I mean, the last comment is fundamentally on point. There is a fundamentalist strain of racism that has existed in this country from colonization all the way through to today. And you can trace it from the 1600s all the way through, and it is as close to a historical fact as we can get. And the problem is when uh, programs and policies and structures are built on the foundation of racism, it becomes very difficult not only to convince people that it's there, but it convinced people that the time, money, and effort in making the change is worthwhile, because in order to do that, you'd have to break down the entire system and build it back from scratch. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
they're just not.
Surgery. Surgery. Yeah. Stop doing
It's
band-aids on a wound, right?
you just have to. I mean, it would have to. And like, I'm not advocating anarchy or anything like that, but in order to move forward in a more equitable, diverse society, racist institutions need to be broken down to their bare bones and rebuilt. And that is why I know I see a lot of questions asking about repercussions. That's part of the answer as to why. Because if the system either rewards or ignores racism or discrimination in all of its forms, why is it going to punish those that partake?
Mm.
Or how can it punish those partake? And because language has evolved so, coded language has evolved so effectively that so many times there are things that sound so good, you just got to unfortunately peel back the surface and you see that what they're advocating for isn't really what they're saying. That's a really
Dr.
somber. That's a really somber note to end on. I'm just saying we're fighting these guys, and we're not gonna stop fighting. We're gonna keep pushing these guys, and everything that you guys do here, please keep doing and spread your methodology to other communities, because it is the way to do it. And you guys, I kid you not, have given me hope. And I live in Texas, so I need a lot of it.
I was just going to say, Dr. Milwicki, we can't thank you enough for the work that you do, taking the time to spend with us in PA while you are in Texas, and sharing with us. I'd be remiss if I didn't share too that for those that aren't familiar with the PHRC, we are Pennsylvania's leading civil rights enforcement agency. We are the agency that operates under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Everybody who lives, travels, works in Pennsylvania has the opportunity to live, learn, and work free from discrimination. For anybody that comes across anything as far as recruitment, symbolism, any type of issues regarding race discrimination, religion, contact me. I'm going to put my email in the chat. My name's Cheryl. I'm the director of the Civil Rights Division. We are the team that will jump in the car and ride out to your neighborhood and have a conversation with you. So again, we thank you so very much for joining us today. There will be a recording available. And Dr. Milwicki, a special thank you to you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.